In the spring of 1881, on a rented quarter section 8 miles south of Sedalia, Missouri, a man named Thomas Halloran heard horses on his lane at 1:30 in the morning. He did what his father had taught him to do. He got his wife and his sister and 5 children up out of their beds and moved them, quiet and barefoot, into the little windowless-feeling room at the center of that farmhouse, the room they called the strong room, the one with the double plank door and the oak bar and the iron brackets his father had forged himself. He dropped the bar. He heard it seat. Outside, there were 4 riders who had heard, in town, that Halloran had sold 22 head of cattle that week and had not yet been to the bank. There was shouting. There was a boot against the front door, and the front door held. There was a shoulder against the strong room door, and the strong room door held. The bar held. The brackets held. Everything Thomas Halloran had built held exactly the way he built it to hold. By dawn, the neighbors found 7 of them dead in that room, and not one of them had a mark on them. The county paper blamed the raiders, and the raiders deserved blaming, and 2 of them hanged for it in the end. Murdered by outlaws, it said. That is what the stone says, too. But the coroner in that county wrote down something the paper did not print, which is that there were no wounds. No bullet holes in that door. No blood on that floor. 7 people in a barred room, and the killer was never once in the room with them. The real killer, friend, was a sentence. A short, comfortable, deadly sentence that 100,000 American families believed the same way they believed sunrise. If the door holds, the family is safe. That sentence is the myth this whole story exists to kill. And I am not going to tell you yet how it killed the Hallorans, because you will not forget it if you have to wait for it. What Thomas Halloran was doing that night has a proper name, and the name has mostly fallen out of American mouths. Hardening the house. Some old people called it laying the rings. Some called the room itself the strong room, some the fast room, meaning held fast. And in parts of Appalachia, where I come from, they called it the badger hole, because a badger will let a dog have the whole hill and still not lose the one hole he means to keep. It was not paranoia, and it was not a hobby. It was ordinary household competence, the same shelf as banking a fire or salting a hog. Your great-great-grandfather did not have a patrol car. He did not have a dispatcher. He had a lane, a dog, a door, a room, a drill, and a way out. And he laid those in a particular order for particular reasons, and when he did it right, his family walked out at sunrise and told the story for 60 years. There are 25 of these tricks, and they group into 6 pieces, and I am going to give you every one of them. Every piece except the last one, and we will get there, I promise you that. Stay with me by choice, neighbor. This is worth the 20 minutes and then some. So let me ask you something plain. If a stranger put his boot to your front door tonight at 2 in the morning and the nearest deputy was 22 minutes out on a good night, and in a great many American counties, 22 minutes is a good night, do you know, right now, without getting up, which room in your house you would take your family to? Do you know whether the door of that room is a real door or a sheet of cardboard with a wood veneer on it? Do you know if the window in it opens? Could your 8-year-old open it in the dark, alone, coughing, with no light and nobody to help her? Most grown men in this country cannot answer one of those questions. Their great-grandfathers could have answered all 4 in their sleep, and the answers were not clever, and they were not expensive, and nobody sold them a thing. That is the sovereignty I want to hand back to you today. Not fear, competence. The difference between a man who has a plan and a man who has a phone number. My name is Caleb Wren. My people have been on the same Appalachian Ridge since the 1790s. 7 generations of us, same spring, same rocks, same wind. My father died when I was 6, and my granddad Amos raised me from there, and before the cancer took him, he sat me at the plank table most evenings for 2 years and made me copy down everything he knew in a leather journal, in pencil, in my own hand, because he said a thing you write yourself, you cannot lose. That journal is 11 inches by 7 and about 2 inches thick, and it is sitting on the table beside me right now, open to a page he titled, in his blocky letters, The House and the Room and the Way Out. This channel is me keeping a promise to a dead man. That is the whole of it. And here is the thesis of this one, plain as I know how to say it. Hardening a house did not stop working. It works today exactly as well as it worked in 1881, better in some ways, because the physics of a screw did not change. It went away because somewhere between 1946 and 1985, a set of industries figured out that there is no money in a family that already knows what to do, and there is a great deal of money in a family that is afraid and does not. Builders discovered a cheaper door. Hardware makers discovered a shorter screw. And then a whole industry discovered the monthly subscription. And the day your family forgot they could harden their own house was the day somebody started billing them $50 a month for the feeling. By the end of this, you will know the full method, and you will know the one step that got worked hardest out of the talk. Not by villains in a room, by something duller and more permanent than villains. Before we get into the meat of it, go ahead and pull the trigger on subscribe. Not for me, friend, because the buried skills we drag back into daylight around here, you are going to want the next one. And the way these things go, you will not stumble on it twice. Now the roadmap, and I want you to hear the stakes escalate as I lay it out, because they do. 6 pieces, 25 tricks inside them. Piece 1 is the warning ring, the tricks that buy you minutes before anything touches your house. Piece 2 is the shell, the outer doors and windows. Piece 3 is choosing and building the room itself. Piece 4 is what lives in that room before you ever need it. Piece 5 is darkness, silence, and getting word out. And piece 6 is the last one single trick, the one that hung the Hallorans. Miss any one of the first 4, you lose the door. Miss the 5th, you lose the hours. Miss the last one, you lose the family. Most beginners get the early pieces right, or right enough. Men are good at hardware. Men love hardware. It is the last piece that has been quietly stripped out of the talk for a century, so completely that I have read modern home security guides, glossy ones, that never mention it a single time. And the real question is not what we forgot, neighbor. It is who cashed the check when we forgot it. Piece 1. The warning ring. Picture a dooryard in Ohio in 1860. It is not decorative. There is a gate at the lane head that squeals on purpose because a man who oils that hinge is a fool. There is a stretch of coarse creek gravel from the gate to the porch, ankle deep in places, and a horse cannot cross it quiet, and neither can a man. There are 4 geese in the yard, and geese are meaner than dogs, and they never sleep. And there is not one shrub within 6 feet of a window, because the woman of that house cut them back every April with a corn knife and did not consider it gardening. She considered it seeing. Here is the instruction, and it costs almost nothing. First, gravel. A path of loose, coarse, angular gravel, 2 to 3 inches deep, on every approach to your house that is not paved. Angular, not round pea gravel, because angular gravel grinds and speaks. Second, sight lines. Keep every shrub within 8 feet of a window trimmed to below 3 feet tall, and limb every tree canopy up above 6 feet so that there is no standing cover between waist and shoulder height anywhere a man could work on a window unseen. Third, a dog. It does not have to be a big dog. It has to be a dog that speaks. Fourth, light, and I mean light that changes. A porch light burning all night is furniture. A light that comes on when something crosses the yard is information. And if you have no electricity out there, a lantern hung at the gatehead with a mirror behind it does more than you would think. Fifth, and this is the old tin can trick, a length of fine wire or heavy fishing line strung 10 inches off the ground across a gate opening or a gap in a fence, with 3 tin cans on it weighted with a spoonful of gravel each. Not a trap. Never a trap. I want to be very clear, friend, because this matters both morally and legally. You do not set anything out there that can hurt a person. Spring guns, pits, wire at throat height across a lane, any of that will get you sued, get you prosecuted, and one day it will maim the neighbor boy chasing a calf. What you are building is not a weapon. It is a doorbell you did not install. The litany for it goes like this: gravel talks, geese watch, dog speaks, light changes. Nothing hides in the yard. Every time. And that is not folklore. In 1972, an architect named Oscar Newman published a study of housing projects and called what he found defensible space. And out of that came a whole federal-backed field the crime prevention people call crime prevention through environmental design, which the Department of Justice and university extension programs have been publishing bulletins on ever since. Their core findings, stripped of the language: keep sightlines open, mark your ground clearly, make approach noisy and visible. That is the federal government, at expense, confirming what a farm wife in Ohio did with a corn knife every April. The number one botch on the warning ring is planting for privacy. People put a wall of arborvitae and lilac right up against the house because they do not want the neighbors seeing in, and what they have actually built is a private, roofed, comfortable workroom for anybody who wants 40 uninterrupted minutes at their window with a pry bar. Privacy at the property line is fine. Privacy at the wall of your house is a gift to the wrong person. This week, walk your yard at night. That is it. Walk it at 1 in the morning with your porch light off and see where a man could stand and not be seen from the road or from any window. Then cut that spot out with loppers on Saturday. It costs you nothing, and it changes the arithmetic of your whole house. Because the warning ring only buys you seconds, and seconds are only worth something if the shell holds. And the shell is where 9 out of 10 American houses fail, in a way that has nothing to do with locks and everything to do with a piece of hardware that came free in a little plastic bag. That is next. Piece 2. The shell. 1904, a plank house in the Kentucky hills, and my great-great-grandfather is hanging a front door he built himself. It is 2 layers of 1-inch oak boards, the outer layer running vertical and the inner layer running horizontal, nailed through in a grid with clench nails, the points bent over on the inside so no man alive is pulling them. It weighs what a small child weighs. Across the back of it, 2 iron brackets and a bar of white oak 4 inches by 2, and the door frame is not nailed to the wall, it is pegged into the sill and the plate. Now here is the honest, unglamorous, modern version, and there are 6 tricks in it, and together they cost less than dinner out. 1. Longer screws. This is the single highest value thing in this entire story, and it costs about $6. Take the strike plate off your exterior door, the little metal plate the latch goes into. Look at the screws that came with it. They are 3/4 of an inch long. They go into the door jamb, which is a thin board, and that is all. They do not reach the framing. Replace them with 3-inch screws. Do the same for the deadbolt strike. Do the same on the hinge side. 2 3-inch screws per hinge leaf into the frame. Now when a man kicks your door, the force has to break the actual house instead of splitting a piece of trim. 2. The reinforced strike. For about $20, you can buy a box strike or a long reinforcing plate that spans the whole jamb. And with the long screws, it turns the weakest point on your house into one of the strongest. 3. The door itself. If your exterior door is a hollow slab, replace it or forget the rest. Solid wood, solid core, steel, fiberglass with a real core. And check which way the hinges face. If the hinge pins are on the outside, either set non-removable pins or drive a headless screw into one hinge leaf so it seats into a matching hole in the other, and pins the door even if the pins are pulled. 4. Sliding doors and double-hung windows. A cut broomstick or a hardwood dowel in the track of a slider stops it dead for the price of nothing. For a double-hung window, drill a hole at a slight downward angle through the inner sash and partway into the outer sash where they overlap, and drop a stout nail or a steel pin in it. The window can rise a couple of inches for air and no further. And I'm going to interrupt myself right here, neighbor, because that 4th trick has a version of it that killed a family in Missouri, and I will not let you build the killing version. Whatever you pin it so it comes out from the inside, by hand, in the dark, without a tool, without a key, by a person who is frightened. A nail with a head you can hook a finger under, a pin on a string. Never a screw, never something driven flush, never something you need pliers for. Hold that thought. It comes back at the end, and it comes back hard. 5. The glass beside the door. That pretty side light, or the little window in the door itself, means a man breaks one pane and reaches your thumb turn. Use a deadbolt without an inside thumb turn only if you can meet fire egress rules where you live, which usually you cannot, So instead, put security film on that glass, or fit an interior shutter, or simply move the important lock out of arm's reach. 6. Move the ladder. Move the woodpile off the wall. Lock the shed. Your great-grandmother would not leave a ladder lying along the north side of the barn any more than she would leave the smokehouse open, because you do not hand a man his tools. The litany. Long screws, solid door, pinned sash, plated strike, no glass in reach, no ladder in the yard. Every time. And here is the validation, and here is where I get quiet and a little angry. Look at any burglary study the Department of Justice has published in the last 40 years, and the same finding shows up. The overwhelming majority of forced residential entries are not sophisticated. They are a shoulder, a boot, or a pry bar at a door, or a hand through broken glass. Not lockpicking, not alarm defeating. Force at the frame. Which means the frame is the fight, and the frame is a $6 fix, and nobody told you. So who cashed that check? Circle 1946. The war ends, 11 million men come home, and America has to build houses faster than any nation has ever built houses. Out of that boom comes the flush, hollow core door, a light frame with a cardboard honeycomb inside and a thin veneer glued to each face. It is cheap, it is light, one man can hang 40 in a day, it does not warp, and by the middle of the 1950s, it is standard in nearly every interior in the country and creeping into some exteriors. At the same time, the hardware trade standardizes on the short screw, because a short screw is cheaper, it ships lighter, and it is plenty strong enough for the only thing the builder is being measured on, which is whether the door hangs true on the day the inspector comes. Not a conspiracy, neighbor, just how markets work. Nobody outlawed a 3-inch screw. Nobody banned a solid door. They simply built a world where there was no dollar in you knowing about the screw, and considerable dollars in you paying somebody a monthly fee for the feeling that you were covered. Which brings me to the modern gadget, and I will say this once. You can buy a whole home monitored security package today for $2,000 to $4,000 installed, plus $30 to $60 a month for as long as you live in that house. Call it $20,000 over 30 years. That system will call a call center, which will call a dispatcher, which will send a car. And in the Kansas City Preventive Patrol experiment in 1972 and 73, and in the response time research that followed it through the 70s, the finding that shook the profession was that shaving minutes off police response almost never changed outcomes, because the delay that matters is the delay before anybody calls at all. The screws cost $6. The screws are working at 2 in the morning, whether or not the internet is up, whether or not the battery is charged, whether or not anybody in a distant office is awake. And if that system is already on your wall, friend, that is not on you. They are extraordinarily good at selling. Most people have one. I am not telling you to rip it out. I am telling you to go buy the screws anyway, because the box on the wall cannot hold a door, and the screws can. The number one botch on the shell is spending $400 on a high-security lock cylinder and leaving the original short screws in the strike plate. You have bought a bank vault and hung it on a paper hinge. When that door goes, it will not go at the lock. It will go at the jamb, and it will go in one kick, and you will find yourself holding a beautiful, undamaged lock, still bolted into a piece of splintered pine. I did that, more or less, when I was 14. Granddad Amos had me rehang the smokehouse door, and I did it proud, plumb and true. And he came out and put one hand flat on it and leaned, just leaned, and the whole strike side tore out of the frame. I stood there red as a stove. He fished in his shirt pocket and set one long screw on the sill next to my boot. He did not yell. He said, "Now you know." This week, buy one box of 3-inch wood screws and one screwdriver's worth of your evening. Do the front door, just the front door, 12 minutes. Because a hard shell buys you a minute or two, and 1 or 2 minutes is not enough, and it was never supposed to be. The shell was only ever meant to buy you time to get to somewhere else in the house. And where that somewhere is, which room, and why the room your instinct picks is almost always the wrong one, that is next. Piece 3, the room. 1893. a soddy on the Nebraska plains, and the woman of that house has picked her room the way a general picks ground. Not the bedroom, though the bedroom has the bed. Not the parlor, though the parlor has the good door. She has picked the little room off the kitchen that shares a wall with the chimney mass, because that wall is stone, and stone does not care about anything. It sits over the cellar hatch. It has one small window on the lee side of the house, away from the lane, and that window opens, because she opens it every single week, whether it needs opening or not. 4 tricks here, and they are choices more than purchases. 1. Choose interior over exterior, but never choose a room with no way out. You want a room a man has to come through the house to reach, which means he is loud, slow, and committed by the time he gets there. But if the price of that is a room with a single door and no window, you have not built a refuge, you have built a box, and we will talk about boxes. 2. Choose mass. A wall that shares framing with a chimney, a stair, a plumbing chase, a masonry core, a hillside, anything dense. In an old house, the chimney breast is the strongest thing in the building. In a newer house, an interior bathroom or a closet under the stairs often has more framing in the walls than anywhere else on that floor. 3. Put a real door on it. This is where the hollow core problem comes home to roost, because the door on your bedroom is almost certainly a cardboard honeycomb, and a man will put his fist through it, not his shoulder, his fist. A solid core interior door costs somewhere between $100 and $200, and it is a Saturday to hang. Add the long screws. Add a real deadbolt or a stout barrel bolt at the top and one at the bottom, and mount them into the framing, not the trim. And take the bar off your father's barn if you want the old way. 2 iron brackets and a length of oak, and no man on earth kicks that in. 4. Know your ground. Everyone in your family should be able to reach that room from their bed in the dark, without a light, without stepping on anything, in under a minute. Which means the path is clear. Which means the laundry basket does not live in the hall. The litany. Interior, but never sealed. Mass in the wall. A door with a core. 2 ways in the dark, every time. Validation for this one comes from an odd place, and it is worth your attention. The fire research people, Underwriters Laboratories, ran a whole program on this, and the National Fire Protection Association has been preaching it in their Close the Door campaigns, have measured what happens on either side of an ordinary closed interior door during a house fire. Behind the closed door, temperature stayed survivable, and the carbon monoxide reading stayed dramatically lower. In the hallway on the other side, conditions went lethal. A closed door, an ordinary one, is one of the most protective objects in your house, and that is measured, published, repeatable fire science. Hold on to that fact, neighbor. It cuts both ways, and the way it cuts the second time is going to hurt. The number 1 botch here is picking the master bedroom, because that is where people already sleep and where the valuables are. That is the first room a man goes to. You have chosen to make your stand in the exact room your opponent has already decided to walk into, and you have chosen it because you were sleepy. This week, pick your room. Do not buy anything. Just walk your house and pick it, and then walk to it from your bed with your eyes shut, and then tell the people who live with you which room it is. That conversation takes 4 minutes, and most American families have never had it. Because an empty room with a good door is still an empty room, and what you keep in there before you ever need it is the difference between an hour and a night. That is next. Pattern break, friend. Everything up to here is the easy part. Gravel, screws, doors. That is carpentry, and carpentry is comfortable, and a man can do all of it on a Saturday and feel like he is finished. He is not finished. He has built the part of this that you can photograph. What comes next is the part where the survival myth was born, and where people died for lack of knowing. Because a room is a place to be, and being somewhere for 3 hours in the dark with children who are frightened and a person outside who has not left is a different discipline entirely, and it broke families that had perfect hardware. Piece 4. Provisioning the dark. 1877, a Texas frontier cabin, and there is a shelf in the strong room the children are not allowed to touch. On it, a stone jug of water, always full, changed every Sunday. A tallow candle and a tin of lucifer matches in a wax-sealed jar. A wool blanket, a slop bucket with a lid. a tin whistle on a leather thong, a hatchet, 50 feet of hemp rope. That is not hoarding. That is a shelf a woman restocks the way she restocks flour. 5 tricks, and every one of them translates directly. 1. Water and a bucket. 1 gallon of water per person, rotated every 6 months, and a bucket with a tight lid and a handful of sawdust or cat litter, because I promise you, friend, 3 hours in a locked room with small children and no bucket is a problem you would rather have solved in advance for $4. 2. Light you hold. 2 flashlights, headlamps if you can, with the batteries stored in them backwards so they cannot drain, plus a spare set in a plastic bag. Not a candle. Not in the modern world. Not in a room with people in it. Not ever. Light in your hand, low, pointed at the floor. 3. Shoes, and this one nobody tells you. A pair of hard-soled shoes for every person, in the room, sized. Because if you ever have to leave that house in a hurry, you will be crossing broken glass, and I have seen what a bare foot looks like after 40 feet of glass, and it will stop a grown man from moving. 4. The whistle. A cheap plastic peeless whistle on a lanyard for every person, hanging on a nail inside the room. A whistle carries 3 or 4 times as far as a shout, and costs almost nothing, and does not get hoarse. Search and rescue people have carried them for a century for exactly that reason. A child who cannot yell can blow a whistle for an hour. 5. Tools, not weapons. A pry bar and a small hatchet or a folding saw, and a coil of rope, and I want to be precise about why. Not to fight with, to get out with. To open a stuck sash, to cut a screen, to take out the thin plaster and lath of an interior wall into the next room, to lower somebody from a second-story window. Firefighters carry those tools to make exits, and that is the only reason they are on your shelf. And I will add a 6th thing that is not a trick but a duty. A working smoke alarm in that room and in the hall outside it, tested every month, batteries every year. The rest of this story turns on that. The litany. Water and a bucket. Light in the hand. Shoes on the feet. A whistle on every neck. Tools that open, not tools that fight, every time. The institutional backing here is not mysterious. Every emergency management agency in this country, federal and state, publishes essentially this same shelf under the heading of shelter-in-place kits, and every one of them puts water, light, sanitation, footwear, and a signaling device on it. They are not being original. They are writing down the shelf that stood in a Texas cabin in 1877. The number 1 botch is a kit that lives in the garage. If it is not in the room, it does not exist. At 2 in the morning, with your heart going, you will not walk past the man in your kitchen to fetch a bag. And here is where I will make my 1 gadget complaint of the day, and then I will let it go. There is a market right now for prefabricated residential safe rooms, steel-lined closets, ballistic panels, biometric locks, and the prices run from around $8,000 for a small one to well over $50,000 for the kind with a filtered air handler and a satellite phone. Some of those are honest products, and some are jewelry for frightened rich men. What I have just described to you, the shelf, the door, the screws, runs $160 all in, and it has protected American families for 200 years, and it never sent anybody a bill. And if you have already bought the steel closet, neighbor, that is not on you either. Fear is the easiest thing on earth to sell, and the people selling it went to school for it. This week, put 1 gallon of water and 1 flashlight in the room you picked. Nothing else. Start the shelf, because you can have the room and the shelf and still lose the night. And the reason is that most families have never once practiced, and there is a specific way that practice goes wrong that turns a good plan into a stampede. That is next. Piece 5. Darkness, Discipline, and Getting Word Out. 1888, an Indiana farmhouse. The mother has a rule, and the rule is 1 voice. When the bar drops, only she talks. The children do not talk. The children have a job each. The eldest counts heads out loud, once, and says the number. The middle one holds the youngest's hand and does not let go for any reason. The father is at the window with the lamp doused, watching, saying nothing at all. And out at the road, hanging in the dark, a lantern with a red glass chimney that means one thing to every neighbor within 2 miles. 4 tricks. 1. Light discipline. Lights out in your room, lights on everywhere else if you can manage it from where you are. You want to be in the dark, looking into the light. A man in a lit hall cannot see into a dark doorway, and he knows it, and knowing it makes him slow, and slow is the whole product we are trying to buy. 2. One voice and a head count. Somebody is in charge, and everybody knows who before it ever happens. Somebody counts heads out loud within 10 seconds of the door closing, because the single most common failure in a real emergency is a family in a room believing everyone is with them when a 4-year-old is asleep down the hall. Count. Out loud. Say the number. 3. The drill. And here is where families go wrong. You do not scare children into readiness. You bore them into it. Do it at 7 in the evening with the lights on, twice a year, and call it the badger hole, and time it, and let them beat their old time, and give them a cookie after. A child who has walked to that room 8 times cheerfully will walk to it once in the dark without breaking. A child who has only ever heard it described in a serious voice will freeze on the stairs, and a frozen child is how the whole plan dies. 4. Getting word out, with redundancy. Call the emergency line first, always, and stay on it, and put it on speaker and set the phone down so your hands are free. But have a second path, and a third. The old people had ring codes on the party line, 3 shorts and a long that meant, come now. And they had the dinner bell. And out west, they had the convention that 3 of anything, 3 shots, 3 whistle blasts, 3 lantern swings, means distress. And that convention is still the standard in the backcountry today. Your modern version is a neighbor who has agreed, out loud, in daylight, that a text with one particular word in it means, call the sheriff and do not call me back. Pick the word. Tell them the word. The litany. Dark inside, light outside. One voice. Count the heads. Drill it dull. 3 of anything means come. Every time. Validation. And this is the one that will change how you think about the whole subject. That Kansas City study I mentioned, and the National Institute of Justice work that followed it, found that the clock that matters is not the police clock. It is the citizen clock, the minutes that pass before somebody decides something is wrong and picks up a telephone. That is the segment of the timeline you personally control, and it is usually the longest segment, and every trick in this piece exists to shorten it. That is not folklore, neighbor. That is federally funded criminology arriving, 60 years late, at what a woman in Indiana knew when she hung a red lantern on a fence post. The number 1 botch is silence out of shame. Somebody hears glass and does not want to be the fool who called the sheriff over a raccoon and waits 4 minutes to be sure. Those 4 minutes are the whole ballgame. I would rather be the fool on the phone 100 times than be right once. I got taught that lesson at 11 years old, and not gently. Amos ran a drill on me one night without warning, banged a pot at the back door at 10 o'clock, and I did exactly the wrong thing, which was go look. I walked toward it. He caught me by the collar in the hallway and set me down on the stairs and let me sit there and shake for a minute. He did not yell. He said, now you know. This week, have one conversation. 2 minutes at supper. Which room, who counts heads, what the word is. Do not run a drill yet. Just say it out loud so it exists. Because everything I have given you so far, the ring, the shell, the room, the shelf, the discipline, the Hallorans had, nearly all of it, better than most of you have it today. And they died anyway, and it took less than 4 minutes, and the piece they were missing is the one nobody sells and nobody prints. Pattern break, friend. Set the hardware down. Everything up to here is the easy part, and I have now said that twice on purpose. What comes next is where the survival myth was born. It is where the sentence I quoted you in the first minute, if the door holds, the family is safe, turns from a comfort into a killer. It is where men and women who did everything right, who were braver than me and handier than me, died with their hands on a bar they had bolted in themselves. Piece 6. The Way Out. Come back with me to that room outside Sedalia, 1:30 in the morning, and let it run slow. The bar is in the brackets. Thomas Halloran has his back against the door and his boot heels dug into the floorboards. His wife has the two little ones under a quilt in the corner farthest from the door. There is a window in that room, one window, small, and 11 days earlier Thomas had done a smart thing. A thing I taught you an hour ago, a thing his neighbor had done and recommended. He had pinned the sash. Except he did not pin it with a nail he could pull. He drove 2 8-penny nails through the inner sash into the outer, angled, and set the heads flush with a punch, because he did not want a man working a knife blade in from the porch roof to worry them loose. Outside, the shouting stops. That is the part the survivors of these things always remember. The shouting stops. Then there is a smell. Sweet at first, resinous, the way pine kindling smells when it catches. The riders had gotten nowhere with the doors, and they were angry, and they did what angry men have always done, which is set the porch alight and ride off into the dark and let the fire finish the argument. And now the closed door, the good door, the strong door, the double-plank oak door that had done everything Thomas built it to do, becomes the thing that kills them, because it is not sealed at the floor. There is a 3/4-inch gap under it, the way there is under every door in America. And smoke does not need a door. Smoke needs a gap. And the fire in the front room is pulling air, and air is coming from that room under that door and going the other way through that same gap is carbon monoxide, colorless, odorless, and it binds to a person's blood 200 times more readily than oxygen does. Thomas Halloran got to the window. We know he got to the window because they found the marks on the sash where he tried to raise it and could not, and then the marks of an axe where he tried to break it, and by then he did not have the strength or the sense to swing straight, because carbon monoxide takes your judgment before it takes your legs. Every one of them was found on the floor. Not one had a wound. The coroner wrote suffocation. Under 4 minutes, most likely. 7 souls. And the door held. The door held the entire time. Here is the trick, the 25th one, the one that resolves everything I have kept from you. It is one sentence, and it is the price of the whole story. Every barrier you build must open from the inside, in the dark, by feel, by the weakest person in the house. That is it. That is the piece. Every bar, every bolt, every pin, every dowel, every window guard, every gate. If it takes a key, a tool, 2 hands, or a light to release, it is not security. It is a lid. And a house that a family cannot leave is not a refuge. It is a box, and boxes fill. The full method for the last piece spelled out. 2 ways out of the room you picked, always, and the second way does not have to be a door. A window that opens counts, and a window a body can pass through counts double. Test it. Actually open it, this week, and every 6 months after. Paint seals sashes. Swelling seals sashes. Storm windows and screens seal sashes, so know how yours releases from inside. If your room is on a 2nd floor, a folding escape ladder that hooks over a sill costs about $40 and is rated by testing houses, and it goes in that room, not in the garage. Every window guard and security bar sold legally in this country for a bedroom is required to have an inside quick release for exactly this reason. And if yours does not have one, take it off. Take it off today. And if you are trapped and cannot get out, close the door, and now that door is your friend again, because we know from the fire testing what a closed door is worth. Then kill the gap. Wet towels, blankets, clothes, anything, jammed hard at the bottom of the door and over any vent. Get low, because the good air is low. Get to the window and open it, and hang something light-colored out of it so they can find you. And call and tell them the room you are in. Every one of those steps is standard fire service guidance, published by the National Fire Protection Association and by the United States Fire Administration. And they are the exact steps that would have kept 7 people alive in Missouri in 1881 if anybody had ever said them out loud. Here is the master litany. Say it until it is yours. Warn early. Harden the shell. Hold the room. Provision the dark. Call for help. And keep the way out. Every barrier opens from the inside. Every time. Now the compassion, because you need it and so do I. My granddad Amos had a bar on his back door for 50 years that took 2 hands and a lift to clear, and he slept behind it every night of his life and died in his bed at 86 of something else entirely. Dumb luck is real, but dumb luck is not a plan, and it is not a method, and it does not scale to your children. Knowing is. And if you have got a keyed deadbolt with no thumb turn on the door your family would run through, or window bars with no release, or a bedroom whose window has not been opened since the Reagan administration, friend, that is not on you. Nobody hid this from you. Somebody sold you the lock, and nobody sold you the exit, because there is money in the lock, and there is no money at all in reminding you which way you would run. That is the whole villain of this story. Not malice, just a market that never once got paid to teach you the last step. So let me give you all of it back, in order, the way Amos made me recite it at that plank table. Gravel on the approach, sightlines cut to 3 feet, a dog that speaks, a light that changes, a wire and 3 cans at the gap, 3-inch screws in every strike and every hinge, a reinforced plate, a door with a core in it, a dowel in the slider, a pin in the sash that pulls out by hand, no glass within reach of a lock, no ladder in the yard, a room chosen inside with mass in the wall, with a real door and 2 bolts into framing, and a clear path to it in the dark, a gallon of water per person, a bucket with a lid, light in the hand, never a flame, hard shoes for every foot, a whistle on every neck, a pry bar, a hatchet, a rope to open with and not to fight with, a smoke alarm, tested, dark inside, light outside, 1 voice in charge, heads counted out loud, a drill run dull twice a year until the children are bored of it, 3 of anything means come, a neighbor with a word, and the last one, the one they took out of the talk, 2 ways out, and every barrier in this house opens from the inside, in the dark, by the smallest hands in it. That is the whole method. That is the skill your great-grandmother lived by and the Hallorans died without. And now it is yours. This was never really about a bar or a bolt, neighbor. It was about being a family that cannot be shut off. If the storm knocks the towers down, your people still know where to go. If the deputy is 40 minutes out on a county road, your people still have 38 of those minutes handled. If the man on your porch is somebody you know and are afraid of, your people still have a door with a core in it and a phone already dialing. That is not survivalism, that is not doom talk, and I have no patience for doom talk. The overwhelming likelihood is that you will live your whole life and never use 1 word of this. Good, I hope so. This is ordinary competence that got quietly taken from you, and you just took it back, and it fits in a shirt pocket. Here is your Saturday, and it is small on purpose. Buy 1 box of 3-inch wood screws, $4. Put 12 of them in your front door, 6 in the strike side and 6 in the hinges. 20 minutes. Then walk to the room you picked and open its window all the way, and if it sticks, work it until it does not. Then set 1 gallon of water and 1 flashlight on the floor of that room. Then, at supper, tell your family which room it is and who counts heads. Total cost, under $20. Total time, 1 hour. You will have done more than 99 houses on your road. Now I want to hear from you, because different regions did this different ways, and I only know my ridge. What did your grandparents do? Was there a bar on a door in the house you grew up in? Or a cellar hatch nobody was allowed to block? Or a ring code on a party line? Or a certain window everybody knew was the way out? Or a bell on a post? Some of you come from places where the whole town had a signal. Put it in the comments. Tell me the county if you are willing, because the story that gets the most comments is the story I go deep on next, and I mean that literally. Next time, the 2-cent chimney trick that kept farmhouses from burning down around sleeping families for 200 years, and the decade the insurance trade quietly decided it was cheaper to pay the claims than to keep teaching it. Keep the old ways they kept.